If you want to drive more e-commerce revenue without increasing your ad spend, and you want the revenue today, not in a year, it's email and CRO. That's how you do it. Reconvert customers from long ago and turn existing site traffic into revenue. The cheapest customer is the customer you already have. So if you want help with this, come to pilothouse.co, fill out the lead form, and ask to speak to me directly.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
This is the biggest, the most impactful lever that I've found that you can optimize so you can increase your net revenue, your profitability of the P&L, and overall the speed of your growth. You can reinvest back this profit into faster growth. And that's the compound effect of profitability, faster profitability, back into growth, and then faster growth. The goal of the brand pre-delivery is, first of all, to just soothe any anxiety, just make the buyer feel they've made the right choice, reaffirm that this was the right choice.
It's the world's best email and retention podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you want to make the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue a large part of your digital ecosystem, then follow us on your favorite podcast app today. We're joined today by Thomas Lalas, who is the founder of the Art of Ecomm. We're going to discuss how they create systems for big brands and also discuss his book. So, Thomas, great to have you on the pod.
It's great to be here. I'm so looking forward to this discussion.
It's interesting, everyone out there in audience land, how this came to me. Eric was like, yeah, this guy kind of does what you do. Do you want to interview him anyway? Right? And I said, yeah, I'm happy to talk retention. On that note, just kind of in the intro when we were just discussing before we got in the pod, there were some things you talked about. You talked about, first, you mentioned advocacy. And you talked about basically how the space sucks. And I talk a lot on the pod about how the space sucks. And, you know, this is the world's best email and retention podcast, mostly just because we don't suck. That's all it took. So I wonder if you can maybe talk about your experience in the email and retention space.
Actually, I hate posting and I don't like the act of advocacy, putting in the content, all the work, but I do love the concept of it because as you said, I do think that there's a lot of bad advice in the space and a lot of basic advice. I've seen this ugly shift from email marketing to retention marketing, people calling themselves retention marketers now, when they're actually just doing basic email marketing and they haven't changed anything. So it looks like a lot of bad advice by people who have badly rebranded themselves to look more specialist, right? So they start talking about things that I understand, like LTV and retention curves and efficiency and cancellations. And there is science to it. But I was basically bullied by my colleagues. I was doing work behind the scenes for nine-figure brands. Some of them you probably know: Rice Superfoods, Everyday Dose, Business Choice, Dose Daily, and some other cool brands. And I wasn't posting. I didn't want to put anything out there because I was just in the weeds, just doing the work and getting results. And then a lot of people were working with me or like different platforms, and they were like, hey, why don't you start sharing all these cool things you're doing? People can learn a lot from you. And I was kind of bullied into started posting a bit of content, and then I realized how much I hate content, so I wrote a book. I spent 6 to 7 months to write a book called Retention Economics, where I break down the retention economy from the angle of cash flow and the P&L. Because what is amazing revenue if you don't have cash in the bank, if you can't pay for next month's acquisition costs, if you're one bad month away or one new tariff away from, collapsing as a brand. So there was a big need when Mr. Trump introduced the tariffs and everybody started panicking. And that's when I realized I should write the book that is in my head right now and publish it. So yeah, there is still a lot of bad advice in the space, but the good thing is that there are a lot of cool people that started sharing their knowledge, their learnings, and I can see more and more people hopping up and taking the lead. So I'm all in for advocacy. I'm all in for cool podcasts like you. Happy to share an hour or two a week, sharing what I know with people. And I'm expecting an amazing conversation here.
Yeah. So much stuff you said there that I want to touch on. First of all, I've said this before, but like emails like plaid every 5 years, it's hot and everyone's got to have it. And so, and it's usually something in the business cycle changes. So yeah, exact same experience here. Those tariffs, I was like, oh, email's going to blow up. Right. Which is just really interesting. You mentioned there about the kind of the science behind it. And I'd love to hear what you think about that. I'll tee up really quickly for anybody out in the audience. If you want to dig deeper a little bit in the World's Best Email Retention podcast on this kind of stuff, I've got a cohort episode you can go back to. And I'll tell you, Thomas, after your bit, kind of how we kind of have analyzed some of that. And then there's also an episode on 5 key retention metrics that you can go check out that we did kind of recently. And the important point there to tee up what you're going to say is email metrics don't tell a retention story. So if you're working towards email metrics, you are not working towards customer retention. You're working towards how much someone interacts with your emails in their inbox. How do you measure retention?
That is true. That is true, my friend. People started equalizing a medium, which is email, a channel, with the whole science of retention, which is very broad and includes not just the way you're sending a message, but it includes the way people behave, the expectation of the product itself, the acquisition strategy, the offer, so the customer experience, the packaging, the feel of the brand. All these things contribute to retention in one way or another. So overall, when it comes to the science behind retention, I can tell you my biggest takeaway where we focus on the most. Like there are so many things you can do about retention, right? And you can be very custom with brands and you can look into so many different things. But we decided that we're going to focus on one thing and we've gone very deep on this. So I would love to talk about this. I have tons of data and tons of insight to share. So that is the first 30 days after somebody subscribes. So I'm just going to give a caveat here that personally, I'm not working with non-CPG, non-subscription native brands. So if there is a brand that is selling shoes or mattresses, likely you will not get a ton of value from this, and maybe you can walk away from this episode. Because overall, we are working and we go deep with brands that have the natural replenishment, the CPG nature as a part of who they are, right? So when I'm talking about retention and the first 30 days and everything else, I'm talking about brands that have to be replenished within 30 days, right? Like you run out of the product. So the first 30 days, what I want to share is that this is the biggest, the most impactful lever that I found that you can optimize so you can increase your net revenue, your profitability on the P&L, and overall the speed of your growth. Because with all the additional profit by optimizing the first 30 days, you can reinvest back this profit into faster growth. And that's the compound effect of faster profitability, back into growth, and then faster growth. And then the cycle continues. So the first 30 days, and why it is coded down to science, is that there is a very specific pattern or way people think and what they expect in the first 30 days. And if a brand finds a way to optimize these beats, then they have maximized the chances of people buying a second time. And if they buy a second time and they know they're subscribed and they have decided to not cancel, I'm not talking about accidental renewals where the brands are playing hide and seek and they're hiding the billing reminders and, people renew because they didn't know they were a subscription. I'm not talking about this scammy behavior. I'm talking about brands where the customer knows they're subscribed and they decide not to unsubscribe. They decide to stay subscribed because they want to. So there's more people buying a second time, and these people tend to spend more. They tend to buy upsells, cross sells, commit for longer, prepay for quarterly subscriptions, and they also tend to stay longer, right? So you have this triple effect of people buying more, paying more, and staying longer. So overall, there's 3 different ways of increasing the LTV of the customer just by fixing the first 30 days, right? So I'm going to take a step back because I want to go a bit deeper, but just want to make sure, any question this might have sparked, I want to make sure I can include in my answer.
Yeah. Well, first, like plenty of things you're going to say are going to rhyme with what we've had on the pod. And it's actually always really nice when I have someone come on the pod who's like another expert somewhere in the field and just kind of confirms what we've said in the pod. And I try to keep everything really simple because our service is about, we've got multi-channel clients that come in, they're doing lots of meta and all these kinds of things and creative strategy. And then we say, hey, and you know what? Your kind of retention system isn't really very good. So I try to have very simple systems that we put in place. And one is you want to make someone a repeat buyer within 30 days period, right? Like within 30 days period. Everything's about that. Forget the fluff and stuff. Make them the repeat buyer within 30 days period, because once someone's got two, the probability of a third purchase after a second purchase is so much higher than the probability of a second purchase after a third purchase. When you really look at the numbers simply. So you talked about buy more, pay more, stay more in this first 30 days. Actually, sorry, one more point. I talk about retention velocity, which is how the rate of first-time buyers that repeat within 1 quarter. And I use that number mostly because I try to create simple systems where I can look at 20 accounts and get an idea for what's going on and pick and find the problems. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this time frame, on the 30 versus in the same quarter. Of course, 30 is better than a quarter, right? But I'd love some thoughts on that. And you talk about buy more, pay more, stay more, which is three great outcomes. So what are you doing on a channel basis within these windows to trigger those kind of actions?
Let's talk specifics. So first of all, I need to mention that the minimum structure needs email and SMS as a bare minimum of ways to communicate. You can add so many cool things depending on the ROI. You can add direct mail, you can add push notifications, WhatsApp notifications, you can add loyalty elements, gamification, etc. So the bare minimum is email and SMS. This is cheap enough and strong enough to drive the increase LTV. So I take these 30 days and chop it up into 3 distinct periods. Number 1 is pre-delivery. Number 2 is post-delivery. And number 3 is rebilling. And there's 3 different goals that the brand has during these 3 periods. Rebilling. So pre-delivery, post-delivery, rebilling. Pre-delivery, the buyer is a stranger. Usually a brand will scale through cold traffic. And this stranger has bought, they push the trigger, but there's so much competition out there and so many different products now, and it's going to get even worse, where they're not even sure if what they bought is what they need. So they have a lot of different questions like, can I believe these claims? Is the timeline of benefits true? Did I waste my money? Is there a better option, a cheaper option, right? Like, can I trust the brand? All the reviews, are they real? So there's a lot of skepticism. So the goal of the brand pre-delivery is, first of all, to just soothe any anxiety, just make the customer, the buyer, feel they've made the right choice, reaffirm that this was the right choice. So sending these wonderment like, where's my order type of notification, so people know, hey, this is shipped, this is on its way. And then also lowering skepticism and increasing the perceived value. Now, this is the point where you don't only make the person feel they made the right choice, but also you add more unadvertised value. So imagine if the founder reaches out and they're asking, what are your goals? We want to personalize your journey, so help you achieve your goals. What is your exact goal? You might have a product. I have coffee in front of me. The goal of this product could be it gives you more energy. It gives you better gut health because it's not as acidic. It gives you more focus, right? It could be different. This one has collagen, so it can help you glow up. So different angles. What is your exact goal? Because if my goal is, hey, I want to drink this coffee because it has lower acidity for my gut and I'm kind of sensitive on regular coffee, which is very aggressive to me, but you talk to me about more focus and I already have focus, like you lost me. You sent the wrong message to me, right? So after a while, I will start tuning out because this is not for me. You're talking about something that has nothing to do with it, right? So if you send the right message, you know how to personalize the journey, then people will stay engaged for longer and they will consume your messages. So this is number 1 of ways of increasing perceived value. But also imagine that they're inviting you to a free community where other people like you with similar goals and similar struggles, you're there and you're communicating. Now there is belonging. There's additional value through belonging. Imagine now there is a gift that was not advertised. Maybe it's a digital one or a physical one, or more gifts coming. So more additional value. An SMS club where you only send secret stuff to certain people that are subscribed by SMS. This is additional value. You feel you've paid an X amount of money, but you actually got way more than that, right? So reducing skepticism, making them feel safe that they made the right decision, but also increasing perceived value. So this is the goal in the first pre-delivery phase. That could be 4 to 5 days, right? So you don't have a ton of time before you create the great first impression.
But it's also when they're the most engaged. So it's like this, you've got
Exactly.
this golden few days to really, really get some eyeballs on your stuff.
Exactly. And I posted like a few days ago about basically the closest thing to a hack for engagement. You send a very simple message, potentially an email, with a screenshot of the founder being mid-sentence and saying something. And the simple message like, hey, I shot this quick video for a friend, but I'm pretty sure you want to watch it as well. And you can get, 20% click rate. Like if 1 out of 5 people that receive a message, they engage with it and they watch it, this is huge success. So overall, I'm not all about click rates and all about, these kind of email related metrics. But when there is engagement and people consume what you have to say, these people are going to be more likely to develop a habit faster, more likely to stay longer because they've built belief around the brand, more likely to open messages around upsells, cross sells, commitment. That all increases LTV. So pre-delivery, this is what I'm trying to touch upon. Make sure I decrease skepticism and increase perceived value before they receive the package itself.
Very good. That's amazing. So first of all, that was free. So that was one of your three. And it was absolute masterclass in the one of your three, the first of your three. Now, the things that came to mind here. So I jokingly call this, the term I use is fluff and stuff. It's a term I use ironically after being in marketing for so long, because actually the fluff and stuff is the marketing. That's the stuff that really drives through. And that's the stuff that you want to focus on, not just, hey, let me send you 5 emails for 20% off, right? The thing about the fluff and stuff versus the hard offer is it's harder to attribute. It's harder to attribute fluff and stuff. And so I wonder if you can talk to me about, we touched on almost measuring people tuning out. So measuring the tune out and measuring in the, because by the time you hard measure someone tuning out, like they fell out of your 90-day segmentation, that's a hard tune out. You've kind of missed the ball, right? So measuring that tune out and knowing that you're decreasing that tune out so early in the game, and then measuring the kind of the ultimate, say, cohort benefit or LTV benefit of that fluff and stuff so early on. So you've got early indicators. If you could just tease some of that out for the audience, I'm sure they'd find it fascinating.
Yeah. So the best ways, I've tried different ways, and a lot of A/B tests and a lot of tagging certain people that receive a message or not, and then looking at how this is impacting retention, right? So there's a lot of tests behind all these things, but out of everything that I've done so far in my team, I think the best way to measure this tune out and the effect of the pre-delivery phase is on the almost 0-day churn. People buying something and then immediately canceling, or canceling in the first few days. If they cancel in the first few days, that means that either their intent was not strong, meaning they didn't plan to stay anyway. No matter what you did, they would cancel because their goal was to potentially get a discount because maybe subscription was the only option available, or they just want to get the freebies, right? They wanted to game the system perhaps. So if you see more people not canceling in the first 4 to 5 days, that is a win. That means having a control group of people not receiving any message or receiving some transactional messages, hey, this is where your order is, versus brand related messages, message from the founder, additional value, etc., what I talked about. And then you see the control group versus the new group. You will see, personally, I've seen every single time there is a drop, depending on the brand, a big or a small drop of the first 4 days of cancellations, which is a big win because you don't want people to cancel before they even receive the product. That means that these people were not going to stay longer, right? But if they cancel right away, you've lost any chance you've had of these people buying again a second time. You want to buy time initially. You want to make sure people feel the product, they use it for the first time, And then they can make a well-informed decision if they stick around or not. If they still try the product, don't have strong intent, they try the product, they're not impressed, and they cancel, they're a game. You gave them a shot and they decided to leave. And there's always going to be a 20-30% of people, no matter what you do, they're going to cancel, right? But the immediate effect is on the 0 day cancellations, and that stretches out to just a few days after the first purchase. So overall, this is the way that I'm looking into the effect. I don't like just sending messages for the sake of it. Every single message has its own place. When you send a message from the founder asking what is the reason you bought the product, you want to personalize the journey down the line. When you ask people to join a community, I know for a fact with evidence that the people joining a community are sticking around longer than people that haven't joined the community, right? So all these things are driving higher stickiness, better retention, and eventually higher LTV, right? And at the end of the day, the more people that end up, they start opening the messages and consuming them, the more people, the bigger the pool of people available to eventually see the message that pushes an upsell or a cross sell or a quarterly commitment, an upgrade, right? So you're doing two things, right? You're getting more people that will open up more messages down the line that are more focused on conversion and LTV. But at the same time, you're reducing this kind of impulse of 0 day churn or, 1, 2, 3, 4 day churn, which is, very unfortunate. It's always going to happen.
Thomas, I'll tell you what I think is dynamite about that your kind of 0 day churn angle. I mean, look, joining community, great. That's awesome, right? But what I find dynamite about the 0 day churn is, of course, in past, I've measured things like this and I pick these windows and I say, okay, well, look, I want to see, and I do it on the customer level, not on the channel level, because I want to see that there's all kinds of different things that people are doing. Okay, I want to see an improvement in this window, all channel, and we're going to launch this and, and create like a control. So we got our control, they're not seeing it. We got and then we watch this window. What's dynamite about yours, which I'm happy to tell the world, is 0 day churn it's immediately measurable. I do not have to wait 3 months or whatever it is to find that benefit. So it's like, I think that's a great unlock and shows that you've really put thought in and probably overcome the same that I just talked about overcoming. Me like, I need a result before 3 months. So really, really dynamite, and I congratulate you on that.
I'll just add one more thing, if I may, that I've run a lot of different analysis, RFM analysis of people churning at different parts of their RFM journey. People that have spent little money and they just recently bought, the new subscribers, or versus the dormant subscribers that spend little money, or the veterans that have spent more than $1,000 and they're purchasing regularly, or the people that used to be veterans but they haven't purchased for a year, right? So I segmented the audiences of big brands, like 9-figure brands with more than 1 million customers, and I started looking into, out of these segments in the RFM palette, how often do people come back once they have churned? And I found that the people that churn in the first 30 days, people that were not properly convinced about the product or didn't have a strong intent, they have very little likelihood of coming back. Meaning, in the first 60 days maximum, you need these people to come back and be active. Otherwise, you've lost them almost forever. So if people don't come back in the first 30 days and then 60 days pass since the first purchase and they haven't purchased again, likely you will never see them back again. But this is an ongoing pool of hundreds of thousands of buyers, and eventually some of them will come back. So you might get thousands of people coming back just because of the sheer volume, but overall percentage-wise, the chances are not by your side. If you lose them in the first 30 days and you don't get them back by 60 days, you've likely lost them forever. So that's why I'm very aggressive in the first 30 days, because they're very crucial. Once they graduate from that, they're way more likely to come back, even if they churn, because now they have proven themselves. They've spent for the equivalent of 2 to 3 orders. So now they've had enough time to use the product, right? The goal is to get them to use the product and develop some kind of a habit and see some kind of a quick win, which is a great seg for the second part, post delivery.
Before we do go into that second part, some of the people that you're talking about there might be someone who's like, hey, you know what? I'm buying this energy booster, right? And I'm subscribing it because I want the deal. And then I unsubscribe right away. And then you send them something where they go, oh, hey, wait a second. No, that's the exact value proposition I'm looking for. That's the problem I'm having in the gym or whatever it is. And then you get them to resubscribe. That's kind of this pool that you're talking about there, where you get this you get this quick at bat. And in my experience, it's like less than a week. Right? You got less than a week to do anything with something like that. Now, what I wonder is if you can share for some of the audience out there, what's the value of so for that specific case, there's a bunch of cases we've just discussed, but for that case, what's the value of that pool? How much can a big brand expect to generate by fixing even just that one case that we've just discussed?
I'm going to talk about the first 30 days because overall, you can't just fix the first 7 days and then just let it be, right? You either fix the first billing cycle or you don't fix it at all. So overall, I've run some analysis. I have created different simulators before AI could create these things in a second. I used to manually just create Excel simulators and just get the data and just push to the other one and like what has going to happen 24 months later, etc. And it took days. So overall, and it's in the book as well, so that's why it's kind of fresh. I know that if you improve the retention the first 30 days by 15%, actually, let me pull the exact figures. I think it's a 15% increase that I simulated, which is not unreal, like a 10-15% improvement. It's not something unlikely. Then the effect on profit is likely going to be around 7.5 times more profit in 2 years, meaning the compounding effect of these first 30 days of more people buying a second time and an nth time, paying longer and being locked in for a longer period of time, that increases the profitability, meaning the true LTV, by 7.5 times in 2 years. So the people that stay longer, they tend to be a true gold mine, right? So overall, we're talking about outsized results where it doesn't make sense for any brand not to fix the first 30 days and by extension the first 90 days as well. Because as you said earlier, if you can save a subscriber and keep them subscribed in the first 4 orders, meaning the first 90 days, their likelihood of churning is way smaller than the first 90 days. You can see that for most brands, there's a drop in the first 90 days, the first 4 orders, and then it kind of becomes almost like a flat line, right? For some industries like children, food and supplements and pet related brands, it's almost a flat line. I've seen brands like being at around 25% retention by month 4, and then by month 12, they're at 21%, meaning they've barely lost any customers, right? It's very sticky. So the first 90 days, they're everything, but the first 30 days are almost everything.
And by the way, audience, if you do go back and check out the cohort episode that we did, we can see, and I'll tell you, Thomas, I've shown similar things where although my chart was the inverse of your chart, where it just smooths off and it's like smooth sailing for a long time. And I mean, when I did that analysis, it was basically to tell everybody, if you're going to launch a business, launch a subscribe and save business, right? It's just like by far, that's what you should do. You wanted to go on to the next section, which I think we should.
Yeah, and I'll try to be a bit shorter with the rest of it so we don't end up with a 2 hour podcast. So post delivery, there is a very specific thing. I've tested different variations, but the one that is winning every single time, it's a very simple concept I've invented called bite-sized premium masterclasses. I'm a big fan of mobile games. I'm a father now, so I don't play mobile games anymore, but I used to. And every time I would see that a mobile game would get me hooked in the first few minutes by giving me some quick wins, while I was still not addicted, but I would eventually be like, okay, let's play one more level. That was quick. Right? Eventually, it ends up being dragging a bit longer, and then you have to pay a bit, right? Usually, I wouldn't pay, but I would just spend a bit more time just to make sure I get what I want. And then eventually, it would be like 2 hours down the line, and I was hooked. So I thought, okay, how can I use this psychology for a good reason, for pushing a great product and get people to use it and develop a habit fast? So I took this concept of quick wins and gamification and, just 2 minutes of hooking people in. And I developed these bite-sized premium masterclasses. Now I'm usually hosting them on a platform like Typeform. It doesn't have to be anything special, anything expensive. Typeform with different slides where you can see where people dropped off. And eventually the messages, email, SMS, push notification, they like notifications. Just like on any social media, when you get a notification, you don't care what's inside the notification. You care about clicking it so you can go to the place where you can see what's behind the notification. And the same thing I do with these email, SMS, push notifications. Literally, there's nothing there. Hey, day one of your free masterclass is here. Get there, and tease a little bit of something, one phrase of what they're going to see. And people click it like on SMS, 50% click rate, email, 20% click rate, 10% click rate, like crazy stuff. So the goal is for them to get to the to the place where in 2 minutes, with different slides that are visually appealing and they have bite-sized knowledge, they can feel by the end of it that they unlocked something, they learned something. They learn the value of consistency. They learn what the ingredients are inside the product. They learn how the lifestyle affects how the product works. They learned 5 big myths that they should not believe in, right? Things that are very interesting that you would watch a video on TikTok about. And in the last 2 minutes, anything more than 2 minutes, people tune out. I've measured these things. 1.5 to 2 minutes is the ideal length. And eventually, my goal is to get at least a 90%, 90% completion rate. Meaning, if 50% of SMS subscribers click it, and eventually 9%, 90% of them complete it, I've kind of maximized the number of people that can get educated. And then at the end of it, I push an upsell. It's very early on, and it's not for everyone, but 10% of people that eventually complete a masterclass will get an upsell. And if you can get 10% of anyone to get an upsell, I would take it any time of the day. So overall, people that don't get the upsell, they get educated, they get a quick win. While the product is still working and they're getting to know it and they're building the habit, they've already kind of unlocked a few levels and they feel satisfaction, they're getting badges, right? So there is a bit of gamification to give them a quick win while the product is waiting to provide the true wins of the reason you bought the product. And you get the quick upsells, right? But you also collect zero-party data because people tell you when they're going to start using the product. If it's, say, I have here this supplement that is magnesium, right? You're supposed to take it at night. So if I can help the consumer anchor this to something they do already at night, maybe, next to their glass of water at night, if they do drink a glass of water, or next to their book, or buy the toothbrush, you're anchoring something you want people to start using right away and every day into something they're already doing. So now the resistance is vanishing, right? You're maximizing adoption fast. So you're collecting the zero-party data, and then down the line, you can compare people that said they're going to drink this when they read the book versus people that didn't respond at all. How does this affect retention? And you can understand what is the highest leverage for people to maximize adoption, create faster habits, and eventually stick around for longer. All these cool zero-party data that any data person and retention person would be salivating over. And we have tons of them from 9-figure brands, right? And then this period of post delivery ends up with a check-in by either the founder or a customer service person. So over there, this is one key question that I found is delivering outsized results. And I've made it my mission to optimize for that. First of all, I'm asking them if there are any objections around 3 common cancellation reasons. Say the product doesn't have great taste and you know that. You ask them, how would you rate the taste? And if you know that the taste they said is 1, 2, 3 out of 5, right? Send them something, recipes, like a little something to disguise the taste or whatever. So you have more chances that they don't cancel because of that reason. So for any brand, identify your top 3 reasons people cancel and try to ask them around that to see how you can mitigate the risk. If you know they're likely going to cancel, find a way to resolve the problem. You have the data now. But also asking them, have you felt any early benefits already? So imagine within the first 2 weeks after delivery, you've started feeling early benefits. Whether it takes weeks or a month or so, some people will feel early benefits. And if you optimize for perception, there is this placebo effect that is also making you feel great for using the product while you still haven't felt the results, right? Like myself, when I became a father, I started developing this persistent belly fat, right? I don't like it. And I started working out now and I started walking and I started like taking care of my diet with my wife, right? We both did. We started eating a lot of great food and didn't realize that we're getting weight. Do I still have the belly? Yes, I do. But do I feel great about working out and about, taking care of my diet and taking some gut health pills? Yes, I do. So if somebody asks me, have you felt any early benefits, including your mood or, the way you see life? You will say yes. I mean, the belly's still here, but I feel great about it. So people that said they feel early results, they have outsized retention. So for me, my goal for my clients has become, how can I impact the perceived value as much as the practical value? Because these people feel great. They're going to stick around for longer. They're going to have enough time to use the product and get the results. And eventually they will feel great because they can see the difference, right? So it is, as well as the body itself, it's also the mind, how it feels. So impacting this is not just placebo effect, like, selling snake oil, but it's actually delivering proper results because people stay longer. They give the product enough time and then eventually they see results, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So this question for me is everything. And if you see these people saying yes, keep them around for as much as you can. Treat them as early loyalists because these people are going to deliver outsized retention and profits for your brand. So
And so good that they're generating retention and profits, but also, you know, are you then nudging them to do a face brag or something like that? And actually, how are you then taking that and turning it into advocacy for the brand at that point?
actually, this is genius. And I feel ashamed that I haven't thought about this. Yeah, there should be some kind of a prompt for people that said, yes, I felt early results and just go back to the community or to social media. Dude, this is amazing. Honestly, this is so simple and so intuitive. I should have thought about this earlier. I haven't done it. I'm not going to lie. I haven't done it, but it
That's okay.
makes so
That's
much sense. I should. Thank
when
you.
Eric got us together. He's like, "Look, you guys are both kind of geniuses in the space. Let's just get you guys together and talk." So
Thank you. This is genius. This is a great idea. Of course. I'm going to do it like tomorrow.
we used to do face brags and suits because when someone makes a so I forget there's a cognitive bias involved. I always forget the names of these. Although audience, you can go back and watch my episode on cognitive biases. So when someone's making a big purchase, they convince themselves that it's the right thing for them, right? So sometimes an extra high price pays for itself. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh, this is just a little bit more expensive than I thought it would be. It must be good. I need it. This is who I am. I'm going to buy this because I'm going to represent who I am. And then through convincing themselves that they're making the right purchase for them, like part of the act of that is telling the whole world. So when you word it just right and you a quote unquote face brag, said I guess it's a TikTok brag now. I'm old, and that's how you use that. Look, I really want to make sure I get a question out quickly that's come up as I'm thinking through this. You talked about like, okay, did when you collect that zero party data, you are proving, did your interactors, did it improve their result? And I'd like to just ask your source of truth for improvement, right? And a specific question. This is kind of maybe almost like a little puzzle, is there truly a benefit in improving time to buy and time to repurchase? Or are those metrics red herrings? Because I've often found myself thinking like, is it really time to repurchase that I care about? Or is that actually noise when you look at long-term LTV? So I wonder if there's anything there I said that you can tease out and bring something cool to our audience.
To be honest, because we're mainly working with subscription brands and the repurchase timing is kind of fixed. It's goes with the offer, right? And usually we know that a great structured offer in terms of billing cadence, in terms of the amount of product inside and the use cadence, these three different dimensions, if they're all optimized, then you know that people are more likely going to run out of product in 30 days, right? There might be some early replenishment prompts for people that might run out faster, right? But usually most brands use, especially supplements, you can take two pills in 30 days, per day, right? Like you might forget some pills, but you can't take more. So you know what the minimum is, but you can't surpass the maximum, right? So overall, I would say I don't have a great answer for this because timing, you pretty much know, especially the first 30 days, most people will just buy 30 days later.
Well, then what is your source of truth? Also understanding that, the source of truth for a long-term LTV is too long. I just said it's too long to know. Like to really say, well, my source of truth on did this zero, I picked the zero party data. I found the interactors who were interacting the way I wanted them to, and I want to prove that that interaction makes a difference. What are you using as your source of truth to know that that interaction made a difference?
You will likely not like the answer, and maybe people watching as well, because we live in a fast world. But for me, it is true retention, just waiting for people to eventually buy again a second time, a third time. It just takes time. Honestly, I'm just fighting against time with my clients because I know they're impatient. But at the same time, I want to drive results fast. But there's no way, if your replenishment window is every 30 days, like you can't really accelerate this. That's how much you have to wait. And usually, because the second purchase might be, again, a red herring, because you might have hidden the fact that it's a subscription. So people might have accidentally renewed. So even sometimes you see brands with a 70% retention rate on month two, right? Like the second purchase, and then boom, it drops to 30%. When I see that, I immediately understand that there's not a smooth curve. It's just that people didn't know they were subscribed, or they just gave it a bit more time and then they disliked it, so they canceled, right? So overall, I can see what the behavior looks like from the retention curve just by looking at it. I've seen more than 2,000 brands I have access to, and I analyze all these data real time every day. So overall, the shape can tell you what is happening. So the simple answer is just waiting for time. Now, the question is, how much do you have to wait? My answer is 4 months. 4 months, because the second month can be a red herring. You need to see if there is a pattern. And by looking at it just a single month, you have a single data point, which might be if it's Black Friday, likely people are going to buy less, right? So it depends on seasonality as well. A third time, yes, now you see the true colors. But then you can start looking at LTV increasing after 4 months. Actually, when I have a performance bonus with my clients, and it's always based on real LTV uplift, it's always 6 months. So they work together with us, say in December, right? The first cohort starts getting the new experience in December. Then we'll have to wait 6 months later during the summer to see if how much the LTV has increased and if we have achieved our goal. Ideally, you have to wait for a year or longer, right? But the most compressed time for me is 4 months, ideally 6 months. And this way you can get a true feel. You can't fake the retention and LTV uplift in 4 to 6 months. You can fake it in the first 30 days though. You can hide all the communication, just hide the fact that I scam people and they buy again. You can sell them a lot up front and then just people are, wow, I'm getting so much for cheap. And then you can fake this, but you can't fake 4 to 6 months of LTV and retention.
What is the importance of control groups as you're doing this? Do you always use control groups, or do you just kind of before after kind of thing?
It does depend on the brand, right? I give them the option. Right now, we have a good reputation and a great history with brands, and so far we've had so many amazing wins. So I will tell them, hey, this is our past. There's always a chance that somebody might slip up and the results might be dubious. So I give them the opportunity. Do you want to test? Do you have a holdout group, a control group, where they receive whatever they would receive before or nothing? And then a part of it goes to the new experience or not. And if they trust us and if they believe in us, they tell us, hey, just remove what's been going on so far and just use it, right? So it does depend on how the client feels about their results and how confident they feel in us. But we always recommend to have a control group because some brands are very scientific and they want to know exactly what's going on, especially if they're like nine-figure brands. Any kind of increase in LTV versus a control group, you can extrapolate future results into additional tens of millions of profit, right? So it's very important for them to have control groups.
Yeah, very good. I do want to give you a chance to give your thoughts on that rebilling period before we kind of finish off this great podcast. Do you want to tell our audience what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, so this is the trickiest one Because if you haven't done a great job at educating people and onboarding them, and they haven't developed a habit, they likely have too much product, or they haven't seen results, or they haven't used the product that much to feel convinced that it's worth them paying again, especially if your billing cycle is less than 30 days. I've worked with brands that have 28 days, 24 days, right? So the moment you buy for the first time till the moment you actually are about to buy it to pay again, it's like too compressed. So you need to provide a lot of value fast. And sometimes you just don't. So overall, the goal is to reframe the billing reminder from, hey, you're going to be charged again, into something that provides more value in your life, from money loss into value addition. My favorite way, there's many ways of doing it. My favorite way is providing a freebie. If a brand doesn't have freebies, I always ask them, hey, can you add a freebie, a physical one, on the second purchase? I've run so many A/B tests, and every single time having a freebie versus not a freebie, it does improve retention in an outsized way that covers the cogs of the product. So overall, you're only winning in terms of retention and profit when you have a gift on the billing reminder. So now you're repositioning the billing reminder. Your next freebie is arriving in 3 days, and you also give them options like, hey, you can change your subscription, you can upgrade your subscription, you can refer friends, you could do all these different things. But you give them options, and the main reframe is the value angle. The freebie is something nice you're getting next. And this is slashing churn around that billing period by a lot, depending on the brand. I'm not going to give you exact numbers because people tend to brag with their best stories, and they tend to give you 25% churn. Like, it's always very big numbers and very round numbers that, most brands will not never get. So I never do this. I always say, this has been working really well, and people can test things and find out, what the results look like. But before that, I'm going to tease one more thing. Before that, I have the commitment offer. So people that are they are predicted to be early loyalists based on their interactions and zero-party data collected, and people that click a lot and engage a lot, even if they haven't gotten an upsell or a cross-sell. I put them in a bucket called early loyalists. These people are predicted to stick around longer. So I give them the opportunity to pre-buy in advance for the next 3 months, or commit for the next 3 months, or whatever the offer is. But the goal is move them past the churn point of the first 4 orders. So when they're on the first order one gone, give them the opportunity to pay in advance for the next 3 orders by moving them to a quarterly subscription. I know brands like Groons were doing this a lot, right? Like, a lot of my clients were doing this by default as a great strategy. And now you have fewer billing reminders. People have a stronger intent because they decided to pay in advance every 90 days, etc. So this all happens before the billing reminder. By the time you are on the billing reminder, way fewer people are going to be like, I'm not sure if I want this, because they've been given so much education, check-in points, opportunities to upgrade, and all the good people have already taken some kind of positive action. Now, all that's left is the people that are still on the fence. And I found that these people are also more likely to stick around for longer, right? The people that are going to cancel, they might cancel anyway. So this is overall like the surface level view of the systems we're creating, because there's so much science and there's so much specificity on all these things and personalized systems for the brands. But yeah, overall, these things work really well. And I'm curious to see brands that are trying these things and get outsized results.
There's a lot of truths to shift back to email. There's a lot of truths in how email functions involved in what you're talking about here. So one of the things about fluff and stuff is when it's done well, it improves engagement. And our research is, most revenue, so back to the guys who are selling shoes and pants and stuff, most revenue is happening from people who've been on the site in the last, few months. That's just the way it is. You got campaigns that go back years. Nothing's really happening there, right? It's all right at the top of the funnel where it's all good. Now, I've found that when you have like a good content system that would be offering, and you're talking about basically engaging content. Why do you want this in your life, right? And backing it up with whatever the science or the research or whatever, however you're doing that. I find there's this Pavlovian response where the more back to those games. I had a developer long ago who had analyzed, he got into that space and he analyzed what makes the space work. And he said it's so simply, he said, the more you click, the more you get to click, right? And so it just the
The
engagement
more you
drives
buy,
me.
the more you get to buy. Yes, I mean,
Yes.
it's like when you take the desired action, the more likely you are to do it again.
Yes. And so when you've got good fluff and stuff and they're clicking, it creates this Pavlovian response where an email comes in, and since you were already clicking on the recipes or on the research or on, should you sleep train your children or not? But you've already been clicking on that. That when one of the bangers comes in, when one of the offers, one of the things that's supposed to hit, that increased engagement bleeds over and you get engagement on the stuff that's really supposed to hit. So there's this interesting truth about email that ties into that. Thank you for coming on. I think this is like a dynamite episode. When I thought through the original reason you got on here, Eric's like, would you mind interviewing this guy? He does the same thing you're doing. Right? He's selling the same stuff you're selling. Actually, I'll happily say to the audience, we are in the same space, but we're technically doing different things. Our service, we need to amp advertising. People come here and they're like, we've got to grow. We need to grow awareness. We're going to spend hundreds of thousands, whatever, on advertising every month, whatever. And so 4 months is actually, it's too late. We've already missed it. We need to boom, hit the ground running. And that's kind of what a lot of our service does. And we are an agency. You're more of a consultancy, I would say. If we had to, you said you build systems, right? So happily, we are compatriots in the same space, running at it from different angles. It was really great to have you on, and maybe we get a chance to work together a bit in future, or have you back on the pod another time. And of course, tell us about maybe where they can get your book and all that, and where they can find you and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. First of all, amazing questions. That was a banger of a discussion. I really enjoyed it. And for sure, there is ways for us to collaborate and, help each other out. Now, in terms of my book, it's called Retention Economics. Just Google it. It's going to be on Amazon. I have my own website as well. Just any place you want to find it, go grab it. They say it's a must read for retention and profits. Now, when it comes to my own presence, I'm publishing stuff on LinkedIn very often. So just look up Thomas Lalas, Lalas, and you can find me there. I'm pushing also a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn called Retention Economist, where I break down real data from real 8 and 9 figure brands. I have access to more than 2,000 brands in America, and I break down their economics and I share lessons that you can apply to your brand. So I would love to welcome any new people following my stuff over there.
All right. Well, on that note, entrepreneurs, executives, spammers, and webmasters, have fun spamming.
In the inbox late night, glowing screens see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey, entrepreneurs and spammers. Remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.